All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? In the video I'm bringing you today, we are going to have a dizzying swing discussion. Now, I'm going to go over the changes that have happened over the last few patches. I'm going to go over the changes that are happening as of week 1 of the PTS for Dragonhold, and I want to go over a disparity that, this is why, I disagree with where the skill went. So, with that being said, guys, let's dive into it. In Scalebreak, let's go to the tooltip and the sheet and everything. In Elsewhere, guys, the cast time for D-Swing was 1 second, and the damage in Elsewhere was 10% less than what it is currently in Scalebreaker. And so, their buffs in Scalebreaker were, okay, Dizzying Swing is hard to land. It is not a very good spammable, so we are going to buff it by reducing the cast time and increasing the damage by 10% because they felt the damage and the cast time was too much. And so that happened, and performance has been an issue, and I think that's probably the biggest culprit of this entire thing and why this skill got a nerf is performance. But performance across the board, this skill shouldn't be affected because of performance. At the end of the day, no skill should be affected because of performance. But anyways, my point is they then decided to reduce the damage of this skill by 16% or 15% for Scalebreaker, and then give it off balance. And so off balance is 10% more damage if you have the Exploiter passive. And so if you weren't running off balance in Scalebreaker, it's only a 6% damage loss. So for me, I'm not typically running the off balance, the Tactician passive on most of my builds. And so for me using D-Swing in Dragonhold, I'm only going to see about roughly a 6% damage loss in general. For those of you that were using the Tactician passive to trigger off balance, I'm looking at you, medium armor, bow, and 2H guys, you are going to see a 15 to 16% loss. I can't remember what the number is. You're going to see that damage loss because you were already getting this off balance proc. And so at the end of the day, it's still probably better than what it is in Elsewhere, but I don't see why they felt the need to reduce the damage by that much. So I've talked about it a lot on this channel, and actually, it's not my idea. It's an idea brought forward by the previous combat development team that I just fully agree with. But the previous combat team, and I don't know if this one is adopting it, so I'm just going to provide that caveat here that maybe this new combat team doesn't believe the same way, and so everything I'm going to say and all my argument is going to be basically invalid because they don't believe that. The previous combat team thought that there's a risk reward in that if you're up close fighting somebody in melee range, you are risking your health bar a lot more easily than somebody at range. And so the theory is, if I'm here, I have to potentially take melee damage back from this person. I have to take melee damage from his friends. If I'm way back here, I am outside of melee range. I can take ranged abilities, but I can't take range and melee. And so until they gap close. And because I have this distance, if they come after me, I can get away and I can keep the distance if I so choose. And so ranged gameplay has a little bit less risk than upfront, in-your-face melee combat. I think we can all universally kind of agree with that. The farther you stay away from your enemy, the less you kind of have to tank. And then if they gap close, if you have mobility, you can kind of keep the distance and do some things. So that was the previous thought process on a combat team. If you're up close and personal, you should do more damage with skills, with melee level skills than with ranged skills. If we look at our D-Swing, we're at 11,579. I'm going to show you my build really quick, but I'm going to basically use this for just about all my PTS comparison stuff because a lot of people run this. They're very well. This build is very well known, and so I'm not showing anything crazy. We're on 5 Spriggans, front bar and back bar, Nirnhone Bow, Nirnhone Maul, 2 Bloodspawn, 5 Fury, 3 weapon damage and chance. So our character sheet, Dubious Camera and Throne, Warrior Mundus. I am really setting a new meta here for you guys, so you saw it here first. Anyways, my D-Swing is 11,579 on my front bar. My back bar, my focused aim, is 12,723. So, if you look at our range, we have a 40-meter range on focused aim. We have a 7-meter range on D-Swing. And so once again, guys, like I bring it up because I agree with it, but because you're risking your health bar, D-Swing should do more damage than Focus Stam. Now, I'm not advocating for more or less damage with D-Swing. You know, I understand, you know, because it has a 0.8 second cast time, maybe they needed to reduce it. The off-balance kind of makes up for it a little bit. I can understand all of that. But there's no reason Snipe should do more damage than this skill. There is as close to a comparison for skills, since they're both cast times, and they both are high damage abilities. There's no reason this skill should do more damage than this one, in my opinion. You're just not risking as much. And so when we look at it on our tooltip, or when we look at it when we hit a dummy over here and we stand at a range, you see we are hitting 10,746. If we make sure we're buffed up with Rally, make sure we have that. 10,746. So that's with that. Now if we close the distance, spend all this time getting over here, the first one will not have off balance. That one will, 10,483. And so my one complaint, guys, is that they felt the need to buff this last patch, and this isn't addressed. I've never liked this skill. I do not like that you can sit at range and literally use one skill. Like, this game should be about combinations and abilities lining up all at the same time, or like doing a bunch of different things in order to do damage. And this, it's just like, okay, I'm way out here, now I'm doing damage. If somebody else is attacking you, you're basically dead. You know, I don't like that type of gameplay, just personally. And if you're in, if you're this person in somebody's face, like, you have to eat all of the other melee damage potentially that you're fighting, as well as the range damage. And so there's just a big difference there, in my opinion. And now, on top of this, guys, they then went after the CC. And so I'm going to play devil's advocate for both sides of this, because I try to play every single class. You guys have seen me play every class. I try to post builds of like things that I run in all my classes. I try to get out there and try everything. And so when I talk about this, guys, I'm not talking about it as like a Stamina Nightblade or a Magplar or a Mag Sork or whatever. I'm talking about it as a guy that has played Stam DK with D-Swing, has played Stam Sork, has played, Stamina Nightblade with Surprise Attack. Like, I've played a little bit of everything, and so I can kind of understand, where we're coming from on this. So, D-Swing, I'm going to say this to even the most staunch supporters of D-Swing, but I feel like in general, most people have a love-hate relationship with this ability, okay? So, when you're out there and you're hitting people that just aren't very good, this skill is amazing. You just end up slaying people because it does high tooltip damage, and if people have low resistances, you're going to two-piece them. You D-Swing into an ult, you D-Swing or you light attack D-Swing into an executioner, and they drop over dead. It is a great skill in those situations. However, anybody competent or anybody that can block cast a little bit, like a Magplar or a Mag DK or another Stam DK, whatever, this skill becomes very, very frustrating to use, especially in outnumbered PvP. And so, because people know how to counter it, and there's 3 different ways you can counter this. You can counter D-Swing, guys. You can block it. You can dodge roll it because it's a single target ability. Or if you see somebody winding up this long cast time, you can walk into their body. And if you walk into their body, it will pull them out of the channel. And so, oftentimes, when you see good players fighting somebody with D-Swing, you'll just see them walk into their body, and that person will almost never get a D-Swing off. The only time those D-Swings land is when there's lag and latency in the game. And so, D-Swing is very frustrating for people to use for that reason, because it doesn't land often enough against good players, and so your reliable CC isn't reliable in that situation. But against bad players, you can slay with it. And so, I like this idea, okay? So I'm going to say this. I like the idea of D-Swing, one of the morphs, not having a CC and providing off balance. I really like this because there are some fights where in some classes where I would use D-Swing as my spammable, but then I would slot Turn Evil, and I would come down here and I would put on Turn Evil, and now I have an AoE CC that goes through block, and I can choose when I want to get my CC off. And so there are some players out there that are very tanky. And so if you guys have played D-Swing before, I know you've encountered it, but you don't get to choose when you CC with D-Swing. And so let's say you're fighting a Magplar with 30k health, right? And you land the first D-Swing and it CCs them. Okay, well now you've chunked 5 to 6k off their health. They have 24k health left. Now you feel like you have to ult them in order to do more damage, but you know it didn't put them in a close enough range for them to drop over dead. With this, if they're at 30k health, you can chunk a few times, then fear them, and then leap. And so in that situation, I think it's better. I think this would be better for a lot of different classes for that reason, because now you have providing an AoE fear for everybody really is a game changer, and I like that way more than trying to use D-Swing reliably as a CC. And I said I was going to do this, but however, there are some classes that need a CC with D-Swing because it's really, really hard to fit all the skills you need on your bar. We can all admit that some classes are lacking in some way or another, and having that CC to reliably do damage and CC somebody is nice. And so what I am advocating for, or what I think a good idea would be, is you have Dizzying Swing and you take the off balance off, but it stuns. And so you lose 16% damage or whatever they ended up on, but D-Swing does less damage, but it also CCs. Wrecking Blow, which is currently pretty much garbage, you change that to what this Dizzying Swing is. You give it the off-balance proc. And so then classes can choose whether or not they want to use the CC one that does a little bit less damage or the other spammable that then they can use an AoE fear for. Because I've had it in both fights, guys. Like, I've had both similar fights where I would rather have one of these choices over the other. And for each class, it really depends on what class you're on as to whether or not you can fit Turn Evil on your bar because of all the utility skills and survival skills you need for outnumbered PvP. So, I do not like... I mean, I don't mind this D-Swing change. I don't. I don't like that Snipe hits harder. And so, even with the off-balance proc, like, Focused Aim still hits harder than D-Swing with off-balance. So, even though that's the case, like, I still... I guess I would like to see this damage buff because, in general, you're up close and personal. If you nerf Snipe, I'm okay with that too because I don't like this ability. I don't think this ability should hit nearly as hard as it does. I'm not saying it shouldn't do damage. I'm just saying that this ability, just basically deleting people's health bars in like 2 or 3 skills, is way more problematic than the one that they just addressed. So those are my idea proposals, guys. Obviously, it's the first week of the PTS. I'm not saying that my ideas are like the best or anything. I just, when I go through classes and I'm comparing like how I'm going to try and fit Turn Evil on my bar with this new D-Swing, sometimes it's like, oh wow, like I really have to take off Crit Surge, or I really have to take off Streak, or something like that on a Stam Sork. Like what am I going to take off my bar? Do I have to take off an Execute? Like just so I can potentially, like, am I going to be able to kill people without an Execute? So obviously, it's the first week. It's just a tough spot. I would be surprised if this doesn't bounce back in some ways. This is how I would like to see it bounce back. Provide one alternative that does a little bit less damage but CCs, and then have another one doing more damage but doesn't CC. And then let the people decide. Let the players decide what they want to do and how they want to play, and give them that variety. Because the last few patches across most builds, bar space is really an issue, and so having you shouldn't have a high damage utility skill that also CCs. I can agree with that. I can get behind that. So having a reduced damage CC that does damage, that makes sense to me. So you're offsetting it with the channel. At the end of the day, guys, like if you're getting just destroyed by D-Swings, you got to block. You got to dodge roll. You got to move into them. There's multiple things you can do against D-Swing. So, yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. Hopefully, I made some sense. Hopefully, I didn't ramble too much, but wanted to try and get my thoughts out there because, this is probably one of the bigger adjustments they made in the first week. And so we should have a discussion on it. We should try and, promote healthy discussion, not only on my channel, but on the forums, and try and, you know, see what we can do to, you know, bring this more in line, because, you know, I don't understand the need why they raise the damage and reduce the cost, because they felt like that's what needed to happen. Or sorry, reduce the cast time. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, we got to reduce the damage by a lot more than what it previously had because of the cast time. Like they didn't really give us any information on why they went about doing what they did. So that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.